This is the interesting thing about this clip is that it is being used by the right, even though it really fundamentally undercuts sort of like one of the premises of supposed massive retail theft that was going on, which we also know was hyped up by these corporations to justify bad choices that they made in terms of where to situate their stores, not because there was necessarily in a high crime area, and we've seen this play out in San Francisco and other cities, but because they guessed wrong pre-COVID as to where people would be after COVID.
Target in particular, they said publicly, right, that they were closing stores due to retail theft. And then Bloomberg reported on this, what they were saying to their landlords was nothing of the sort. It was about, they picked wrong, as you say.
And this is a great way to cover your arse if you've just simply miscalculated where these stores should be, and this way it protects you from shareholders and whatnot. Oh, this is a fluke. These people really do know what they're doing, et cetera, et cetera. And the other thing it was supposed to be an attack on these communities where this was going on, and it's being used as an argument as like people are not desperate. They do this because this is just they're criminally minded.
We got to be harder on criminals.
We're going to play you a clip of a couple that was indeed criminally minded, a very wealthy, but they preyed on the desperation of people to get them to essentially commit the crimes.
Yep.
This is like a classic sort of like
this is a left
management
issue.
Worker situation.
Yes,
this
right.
is our
to
issue.
Exploit the workers here and exploit their desperation, whether it's for whatever reason or whatever drives that desperation, and we're going to collect all the money. This clip is from NBC San Diego's Omar Fleming.
This is video of Michelle and Kenneth Mack arrested in December at their Bonzo mansion. Equipped with its own vineyard and chapel, they rented it out as a wedding venue and an Airbnb. But according to a search warrant, it also doubled as a stash house for a small fortune in makeup stolen from major retail stores across the country, like Sephora and Ulta.
This is a top priority for me, primarily because of the safety and security risk that it brings to our team.
Ulta CEO Dave Kimball spoke to CNBC's Courtney Reagan about the wave of theft hitting retail stores.
The network that she had built across the country was impacting multiple stores, and so by eliminating that, it's a step. But unfortunately, I know there's others that are out that are just like that.
53-year-old Michelle Mack and her husband have pleaded not guilty to charges of conspiracy, grand theft, and receipt of stolen property. Michelle is accused of working with as many as 12 women, providing them with a list of items to steal from stores across the country, like this Lens Crafters in Claremont and this Ulta Beauty in Mira Mesa. According to the search warrant, the goods were sometimes mailed to this Bonzo post office and would end up for sale at discounted prices on an Amazon storefront called Online Makeup Store.
We have people that have stolen 54 times. It has become really, really rampant.
That's one of the reasons why San Diego District Attorney Summer Stephan and mayors across the county are looking to reform Prop 47, the ballot measure that made some nonviolent property crimes under $950 misdemeanors. Under a new proposal called the Homeless Drug Addiction and Theft Reduction Act, prosecutors would be allowed to combine the dollar amount of stolen goods if somebody is a repeat offender. Some city and county leaders hoping to get enough signatures to put it on the November ballot.
Yeah, that should really help with drug addiction and homelessness. We will lock them up.
Yeah. So as you said and indicated earlier from the New York Times, the various sources of crime data from government agencies and private groups tell a consistent story. Retail theft has not spiked nationwide in the past several years. If anything, it appears less common in most of the country than it was before the pandemic. And there was an uptick in those years in the pandemic, but it's back on the decline. And then again, the organized retail theft influx as well was also debunked, or not necessarily debunked fully, but you should have great skepticism about it, because this didn't come from crime data. This didn't come from experts and criminal justice organizations. It came from these trade organizations and from the corporations themselves, who were covering up their own ass. And so all of the data shows crime is down. All we have are the claims from the corporations themselves saying organized retail theft is this massive problem. And then we have their reporting on their private claims to their commercial landlords that wasn't even the real reason.
Well, yep.
So if you're still taking the corporations at face value at this point, you have to ask yourself, are you working backwards from your conclusion or your own anxieties, or are you actually reporting the news or consuming it in a way that's responsible?
Well, to the extent there is any change, which I think journalists aren't ignoring because they're so pro the homeless crime or whatever. But let's say, for instance, if someone said, if we approach this by, this is a sarcastic comment, if we approach this by giving her a house and resources, maybe she wouldn't do it anymore. Also, what smash and grabs? Crime is a figment of our imaginations. That's just a hypothetical thing someone could say. This is a clip from The Politics of Everything. And I would just like to say, who is actually doing those smash and grabs? And is it just something we can look at for prosecutors going easy on crime or bail reform or something like that? Or is this actually a problem of people being disinvested in and a lack of care? I think maybe the left actually does eat the lunch on this issue just fine.
Getting as much products as they can to be able to make any sort of money from their fence, they're going to have to do it a lot.
Right. I was shocked by the figure in your article, which is typically they're making 7 to 10 cents on the dollar amount of these products. And when you think about the amount of mascara or makeup you would have to swipe to make it worth it, it's a huge amount.
Yeah, and I guess if you want to call this a job, just like any other job, there are fences who pay a little bit better than that. The case that I highlighted, the fence was a pawn shop owner in the Diamond District in Manhattan, and he was known in the area for paying really poor.
Just to say, offense is like that woman who got arrested holding that stuff at her Airbnb.
Right.
That's what offense is, someone who moves this stuff.
Or rates to his boosters.
What sort of person does that work for what sounds like very little money?
What I learned was that many of these boosters had substance abuse problems. They were stealing to support habits. As an example, I found out about this criminal justice initiative in Brooklyn working with offenders, and they estimated that somewhere between 80 and 90% of the petty larceny cases that they were taking were with offenders who had underlying substance abuse issues. So I spoke to a number of boosters, and none of them could name someone they knew who was doing this for any other reason than to support a substance addiction.
So, yeah, I mean, the point is that yes, the kingpin white people in San Diego are capitalizing off of this misery, but the foot soldiers...
That's a tech regulation issue.
Yeah, but right.
They're selling it on Facebook and Amazon.
Right, that's true. But the foot soldiers doing this, the people on the ground, it's completely in keeping with the arguments that we've made, that this is about desperate people.
We should give them resources. Yeah, we should. And we should not be taking lessons from people who want to constantly pathologize the left about that stuff.
And if they had those resources, would those criminals have a group of people that they could exploit for their own enrichment?
Exactly.
Would they? And the answer is no.